I think over the last couple of years, lenders have been swamped. I got on a lot of, these type of webinars, and Johhny, I think we even handled a couple of these questions. How do I get in touch with my lender? What do I need to do to get in touch with my lender?
Everybody, we are live. I'm here with my buddy David Childers from Keeping Current Matters, and I just get to show up and do the easy part. He and his team bring us a bunch of great information to know the market, what's happening in the state of the market across the country, and the economic factors, and what all the big shots who get paid all the big money is saying that's going to happen with interest rates and inflation. Wait a minute, isn't that what we're talking about today, David? Yeah. Interest rates and inflation.
Absolutely. A little bit of news out there on both those topics, and I thought it'd be a good thing to kind of go deeper on today.
Yeah, and there are topics that we have lived. If you've only been in real estate for the past 5 years, you have lived in some unprecedented times, man. You have lived in the best of the markets, super low interest rates and super high prices, right? So things have been moving, and that's some of the things that have been pushing the market to be as powerful as it has been. But some of the things that can cool that off, obviously, is if your dollar now is only 82 cents. And so what we're going to talk about right now today is interest rates and what's going on down there in Washington and the Treasury and the Fed and whatever they're doing. And we're going to talk about inflation and the impact that inflation is having on our markets and things like that. So what do you see, David? What are you guys seeing out there for interest rates? Are we going to dip below 2?
We'll see. No, I think the, probably biggest topic talked about in our business is interest rates right now. Biggest topic talking about in, certainly the U.S. economy is inflation. And so let's chat about those things today. Johhny, you always bring great perspective to using these things to record a video to get the message out there. That's what, our job is as real estate professionals. It's always so good to see everybody that joins. Johhny and I try to watch the chat there in the comments, whether on Facebook or on the webinar. Ask the questions that you have. So many of you have reached out and, gotten the slides, things like that. We want you to use these things, but thought we'd start there, and talk about that, and maybe start with interest rates, Johhny, and talk through where have we been, where are we at right now, and where are we projected to go? I mean, I think that's the element that we want to be informed on. Now, the reason I bring these up, Johhny, is, and I'd be interested in your perspective on this, okay? Let's talk about this first. The number one thing that I think will kill momentum in a listing presentation or interacting with a client is trying to answer a question they asked and bumbling that answer, right?
Yeah.
If you don't have command of the facts, that's going to cause a problem. Here's what I'm suggesting today. People are concerned about inflation. People are concerned about interest rates. And so I want to give you the way to answer those questions and be the professional.
Yeah, and listen what David just said, guys, right? You can bumble the answer. The consumer can smell confidence, and they can also smell bullshit, right? Yeah. So if you don't know the answer, if they're asking this question, they've been doing their research. So you better be 80% accurate, right? Yeah, be 80% accurate.
That's my goal, is to give you that. And I'm not suggesting you have to become I'm going to talk about the Treasury today. I'm going to talk about interest rates. I'm going to talk about inflation. I'm not suggesting you need to become an expert on that and be able to spout all that off. I'm going to give you a couple of key things. Johhny, you hop in there and say, hey, here's what I'd use for a video. Here's what I would use in the way this, so you have that confidence. And we'll look back, at the top of the hour and say, did we accomplish that? But let's kind of do that. I'm going to go and start off with mortgage rates here. As always, I share all these slides from Keeping Current Matters so that you have those and you're able to use those in what you're doing. So
if you need collateral for your videos, go to keepingcurrentmatters.com, because there's a whole bunch of stuff there that you can get off the blog and everything else. They have excellent content there. If you took 5 minutes every morning to read the blogs and stuff like that, you would be a much more well-rounded in your presentations and your conversational skill sets when it comes that time.
Yep, absolutely, and that's what it's all about, right? If we're confident in that in these answers, we're confident in what we're doing, then we're going to be able to project that and communicate that to the clients we serve. So let's start with mortgage rates here. I've got the slide up. As always, you can reach out to me. Some of you have. If you want these slides, I'll tell you how to do that in just a little bit. But again, ask questions here. Most recent information as of yesterday from Freddie Mac, mortgage rates continue to move up. The average 30-year fix now at 3.56%, just over 3.5%. Say this here, Sam Cater, mortgage rates moved up again as the 10-year U.S. Treasury yield rose and financial markets adjusted to anticipated changes in monetary policy that will combat inflation. We're going to talk about inflation in just a minute. I told you that's the other big concern many have. As a result of higher mortgage rates, purchase demand has modestly waned in advance of the spring home buying season. However, supply remains near historic tight levels and home prices remain high, keeping the market competitive. Certainly a competitive market. Certainly we know inventory, and Johhny, you and I have talked about it extensively, is lower today than it's been in certainly quite some time. Demand is through the roof, and now we have interest rates rising. So many folks looking at it going, gosh, I want to buy a home so I can take advantage of these low rates before they rise. Being educated on this is going to be our job. If I gave you the visual that said, okay, what does this look like going back to January of 2020? I'm going to call that, March was the start of the pandemic. We see the dip down in rates, get down to, the mid twos, 2 3/4, whatever the historic lows you saw with the lender that you work with. And now we're starting to come back out of that. Really, if you start to look at that at an area that's somewhere in the neighborhood of where we started the pandemic from, and that dip happened, and we won't go into that, but we all know Fed acts and moves in to try to help spur the market forward, help to ease interest rates. Now the Fed doesn't control that. We know they can only hope to influence interest rates, and they did that during the pandemic. Now that hopefully we're coming out on the other side, hopefully all this is moving through, we're seeing the Fed start to make different moves, which is then causing interest rates to go higher. If we were to look at this in a bigger range, this goes all the way back to 2018 to today, 3.56%. I've drawn a line in there where it fits in, kind of back to the start of the pandemic. Still really, really good financing, Johhny, for a home at 3.5%.
Yes, sir. Yes, excellent.
Yeah, you think about that historically, very, very good. Now, what do we know? We know back from 2010, really to 2020, 21, before the pandemic, interest rates bounced somewhere between 3.5% and 5%. Where do I think we're going? I think we're going back to that range, Johhny. That's the reality. Anytime you come out of a low interest rate environment, people are talking about rates rising, and certainly you can't deny it's going to cost more to buy a home, and that is all true, but very, very attractive financing right now with mortgage rates. Now, if I was talking to somebody about these, I would use those graphics. And they said, hey, educate me on interest rates. Use this graphic. Here's where we're at right now as compared to the last several years.
And I'm going to give 2 ideas. Sorry about that. Didn't mean to step on. I'm going to give you 2 ideas on this exact graphic right now, guys. One is the way that I did it. One is the way I saw Tristan do it. We both did it on TikTok. He probably might have put his on Instagram. He actually used his phone and took the picture, whatever it was. I think it was home prices, the one where it showed the 18%, 11%, and we peaked. And he took the picture. He talked about it as he took the picture with his phone on the computer. I took a screenshot and made it inside the app and used the green screen where it was behind me. So you can do the same thing with this. You all should be making video. You all should be making multiple TikToks a day. It will only take you 5 minutes to screenshot this slide and make a TikTok with it, right? Yeah. Or Reels. To me, Reels is the most powerful place to be putting anything right now. You should be putting this kind of content out there so you look like you know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And this one does. Let me give you another one, Johhny, that does the same thing. This is the current mortgage rate right here compared to the last 5 decades.
Wow.
So what do we want to do? I always want to give people perspective. Are we in a rising interest rate environment? Yes, absolutely we are. Are we still looking very, very good relative to, going all the way back to the 70s? Absolutely. Do we expect those to continue to rise? We do. Remember, if you go back to what I said a moment ago, last 10 years, we've been between 3.5% and 5%. Let's say we hit the top of that and we go to 5%, not overnight, but over time, next year or two, whenever that time is. I'm not here to try to forecast that. Even if you raise that up to 5%, we're still in a very, very good environment for financing. And I'm going to stop sharing here for just a second, Johhny. That perspective is what I think we need to have in the interest rate conversation, because the question's going to come up in a listing, conversation, and somebody's thinking about selling, somebody's thinking about buying, and they're going to want to know your perspective on interest rates. I heard interest rates are rising. What's happening? Mm-hmm. Is it about to become unaffordable to buy a home? Did I miss the consumer really thinks, did I miss out? Did I miss the opportunity? And maybe I'm just not going to do anything now.
And it's a perfect opportunity for you to educate yourself in the particular field of understanding how that impacts the payment, because how it impacts the payment is going to impact their affordability or what they qualify for. So if you know that you're looking at a property and the person's pre-qualified currently up to say 500,000 and interest rates increase 0.25%, you need to know how that correlates, because it might no longer be 500,000, it might be 480. These are real things. Or somebody's going to ask you that you should have an app on your phone, that mortgage calculator app. I always had one or two of them. And you need to be able to say to somebody, oh, because of the interest rate increase. Now, don't get me wrong, you can lock in your rate and these other things, but in the conversation, you need to be able to understand what is that interest rate impact for at least 100,000. Right? Or 10,000. I would know those two intervals, because everything else can be figured out, right? From at least just 10,000. But what's that interest rate look like at every 10,000? Is it $27? Is it $6? Figure this stuff out so you'll be knowledgeable, but watch the rates, understand this. And when you're having a conversation with somebody, you can simply say, well, historically, right? You ever see the Old School with Will Ferrell?
Oh, yeah.
Where he takes in the deep breath. He's debating the Carvel. He's that, right? Do that. Commit it to memory. Commit what David just said to memory and stay on top of it and everything. You'll be able to just change out certain key pieces. You'll always be saying the same thing, but you'll be able to. This is what script practice is all about. You're able to stick to what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
So, definitely learn that, definitely understand this, but be able, heck, I would even have these slides or something along these slides and other news articles or whatever inside of my binder. So if somebody asks, I could say, oh, here you go, or here you go. And even better yet, you can write your own blog on your opinion of these things and be able to say, well, I wrote an article on that. Here you go. Yeah. And now all of a sudden you're looking more like an authority than just somebody like, oh, well, interest rates are going to go up, but they're still historically low.
Yeah.
That's that just don't even open your mouth.
Or different, even different, not having perspective on it, Johhny. Let's take this. Let's take you and I in real estate and in the world. We both are going to have perspectives on a number of different things in the world.
Sure thing.
Right? And so what does a consumer want? They want to know you have an educated perspective based on facts. All right. If we can have that conversation, that debate, whatever it is, that's a good thing. I think in a lot of cases that question comes up and we go, they're going up, and I have no idea what's going on. Mm-hmm. And not that we're going to answer that way, but that's kind of what people hear.
Sure.
In this, we've got a great resource at Keeping Current Matters. And many of you that watch this are members, and if you're not, I'd love to have you as a member. But where you can show somebody visually at 3.5, you're going to borrow X number of dollars. Here's what the payment is at 4, at 4.5, to give them perspective, not to try to scare somebody into doing something, not try to do anything, but just to get them to understand, hey, this is what it is. This is really the time right now that I want to be talking to people. They're saying, you know what, we're going to do something, but I'm going to see what the market does. Well, let me tell you what the market's going to do. It's going to go up. Interest rates are going to go up, and prices are going to go up. Jacqueline, I see your message there. Thank you for that. And that's what we want to do at KCM. We want to give you the tools to be the educator. And that's the piece on interest rates. And certainly, if there are any questions anybody has, drop them in the chat. Or if you're having these conversations, you think perspective that's valuable, drop that in there. Now, let me kind of shift this and give you a couple of things, Johhny, to go back to the reference you just made on how do you bring perspective to that, and a couple of things that I'll show you. And this came up in the quote that we just talked about, where Sam Cater mentioned the 10-year Treasury. That's what you're going to hear talked about. You're going to hear talk of the Fed is going to raise rates this year, and the debate is how many times. Know this: the Fed does not control long-term mortgage rates. Okay?
You're glad we're having this conversation.
Fed funds rate, very different than interest rates. What do we want to look at? And that's the 10-year Treasury rate. So I'm going to show you a couple of things here. Again, you don't have to commit all this to memory, but you do need to be educated. The 10-year Treasury is skyrocketing. This is a look going back to the beginning of December up until today, and you see this upward line, not a perfect line, but this upward line. Be listening for the 10-year Treasury and what's happening there. Why is that? And here's the line, Johhny, going back to the reference you just made with old school. For almost 50 years, the 30-year mortgage rate has moved in unison with the 10-year Treasury. So when somebody says, hey, I heard, Johhny, I heard interest rates are going up and I'm concerned. Here's what I know. For the last 50 years, the 30-year mortgage rate has moved symbiotically with the 10-year Treasury. You can have a different perspective, John, as anybody else can, but I can give you the last 50 years. And so that's what I want to bring is, you know what, I'm subscribed to a service, or I get from LabCoatAgents, or I'm involved where I know what's happening with the 10-year Treasury, and that influences mortgage rate. Certainly the argument to be made to have a great lending partner who's on top of this and can say, hey, let's sit down with your clients and let's help them understand where they're at so they can get the best rate and all that. Sure. But that is absolutely what's happening in the market.
And I think an agent needs to know the distinction between the Fed rate and the T rate, right? Yep. The Treasury rate. You got to understand that this is important, because if you're sitting down talking to somebody that has a little bit of educational sense, works in the educational world, they're going to most likely know that. If they don't know that and you tell them that, they're going to be appreciative, right?
Yep.
And understand that, but to be able to break out a slide like this to say exactly what you did. Now, I know I can't spell symbiotic, and thank God for right? But I would say in unison for sure. That they run parallel, and this shows you almost exact parallel.
Yeah, and it's going all the way back to the 70s. That's what you want to look at, and you're going to hear that once your ears perk up. You start looking for the 10-year Treasury. You're going to notice that, and this gives perspective. It helps that individual, that couple, that family, whatever it is that you're working with, go, this person knows what they're talking about. What does all this mean, Johhny? Mortgage rates at their highest level since March of 2020, the start of the pandemic, leading to the slowest pace of refinance activity over the last 2 years. Refinances are going away by and large for lenders. I'm not saying people won't refinance, they will. But here's the good news. I think over the last couple of years, lenders have been swamped. I got on a lot of, these type of webinars, and Johhny, I think we even handled a couple of these questions. How do I get in touch with my lender? What do I need to do to get in touch with my lender? They're out there right now. They can help. And oh, by the way, there may have been people that were on the fence, maybe with a credit score or something over the last couple of years, that now that refinances are going away, lenders are very incented to look at that deal and go, let's figure out how to make that happen. Let's figure out how to do that, where maybe when you have 15 refinances coming in a day, they're not as much. But no doubt, we're going to continue to hear more about interest rates. I don't think it'll be a straight shoot up. I think we'll see some up and down like we always do, but rates are going up. And, we talked a lot about this gosh, of the last several months, and we're seeing it here in fruition a little bit quicker than what we would have expected here in January 21st to be at 3.5, but no, they're heading up.
Yeah, and all this stuff that we're talking about, right, David? We're talking about information, being the informational source, doing videos and everything else like that. I'm going to give you all a term that I recently learned, and then I'll explain it. Parasocial relationships. And what a parasocial relationship is, best I can explain it is you're connecting with that person that you see consistently for whatever reason. In this case, we're talking about professionals or knowledgeable real estate agents, knowledgeable about the market and everything else like that. Not just the real estate market, but the financial markets and things like that. The real thing that funds it. It's like when, in the 80s, you remember Miami Vice in the 80s?
Yeah.
Man, I don't know about you, but I always thought I would be Don Johnson. Who was he? Sonny and Tubbs. He was Sonny until I wore shoes for the first time without socks, and I realized this isn't going to be me. But you had a connection to the person, right? Maybe you watch the A-Team and you're connected to Mr. T. It's like, man, I like Mr. T. I like that. And you watch a show just for that. You become familiar with that person, the mannerisms and such. That's parasocial relationships. So if you start to put out in your community, on Reels, on TikTok, on Facebook, couple times a week, maybe you do a show once a week, whatever it is, even if it's just 1-minute videos, because that's what short form is so popular and powerful right now, that if you did these quick little 1-minute, 30-second to 1-minute clips consistently, people in your local area, your sphere, and since 60 to 70% of our business comes from our sphere, I guess the goal would be to grow your sphere, because that 60% is going to grow too, right? And of the base amount. Now people are starting to connect with you. Your sphere is seeing you as a knowledgeable person and all these other things. And what's happening is through that consistency, you're going to start to attract people. People are going to ask questions. People are going to send you PMs. Now, all of a sudden, you're building that engagement. So conversations leads to relationships, and relationships lead to referrals and sales, right? So get in these conversations with people. You got nothing to do. If you're a real estate agent, you're not on appointments all day long or dealing with closings all day long. And I'm not saying the minutia, you hire that stuff up. Then you got all day long to lead generate. And that includes picking up the phone. That includes making these videos, because it only takes 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Build that parasocial relationship with your community and stand out.
And be seen as the expert. That's what I would say. That's what we say at KCM. Be seen as the expert. If you're putting this information out, people are going to look at you as the expert. Here's one thing I'll guarantee you too. People today are going to search what you're putting out there.
Yeah, man.
They're going to look at it and say, what I was referred to this person. What are they putting out in the world?
Yeah.
What is it? So I'm going to go over inflation. I know we've got 5-6 minutes to the top of the hour. If you want these slides, you can email me. It's David at Keeping Current Matters. Always say that. Happy to send them to you. But let's talk about inflation. I think it's the other point, Johhny, that's a big topic. And I want to talk about home ownership as a hedge against inflation. What's the answer to inflation? If people are like, what do you think inflation is going to impact the business? I'll tell you this, buying a home is the best hedge against inflation. And I'll prove it to you. We'll kind of start here. Housing is one of the most effective hedges against inflation. Investing is not just about building wealth, it's also about destroying wealth. Even a small return above the rate of inflation over the long term on a place you would like to live in anyways is a pretty sweet deal. Also here, in real estate is one of the time-honored inflation hedges. It's a tangible asset, and those tend to hold their value when inflation reigns, unlike paper assets. More specifically, as prices rise, so do property values. What are we saying here? In an inflationary economy, you want to have your money invested in something that's going to perform at or above inflation. That's the name of the game. You don't want to have idle funds in an inflationary economy. So what does that mean for home ownership? Here's the Johhny, you're always so good at the backdrop or the video. Home ownership as the hedge against inflation. Go all the way back to the 70s. This is the average inflation rate, average home price appreciation, and we can see home price appreciation has equal to or outperformed just under in the 2000s, but most decades has outperformed inflation. You go all the way back and look at this. That's where you want to be. That's how you help your clients understand, how is inflation going to affect housing? Well, is it going to push prices up? Yes, that's already happening. That's been happening. It's been happening with lumber. You certainly can articulate that.
But that's interesting too, because 2000, 2001 is when the .com bubble decided to retract.
That's the decade, not just the year, but certainly you want to be in a hard asset like housing, like that's going to perform better than inflation, and it certainly has. You can take this, make a video, and get that out there. The other option is you go out and rent, and I've got a few more slides here. I'll try to hurry it up. Rent increases, again, going back all the way to the 70s, have on average, you can just see it visually here, been more than the average core inflation. So yeah, no doubt. And I'll stop sharing here. I know we're almost at the top of the hour.
Oh, it's okay.
Housing is a hedge against inflation, and one that you want to be articulate with as you communicate with your clients. And I can give you more information on that if you want it, relative to that. But I do believe, Johhny, that the two biggest issues right now that are being talked about in our world, and I believe when those come up, they cause concern for buyers and sellers. I'm not saying it's going to be a deal killer or anything like that. They're just concerned, and they want to know you understand it. They want to know you have perspective on it, and you're able to guide them confidently through it.
Yeah, because who knows what's going to happen, right? I mean, when I was selling in the 2006, all of a sudden it was like a roller coaster, right? It was like you going up, got up, and it was like we hung there for a little while, and all of a sudden 07 came, and it was just like we came down, right? So you gotta be aware of these things. Where are we on that? What are we trending towards? I think we're still in, even though we're going to have inflation and increases in interest rates, I still think, listen, the number one thing that most people need, according to Maslow's hierarchy, is food and shelter, right? Security.
Oh, yeah,
we all need a place to live. We're all going to find a place to live.
Yeah. Well, that is right.
You might not get it at 2.5%, but you're going to get it at 4%. It's still reasonable if you look at, the long-term rates over time.
Yeah, you're right, Johhny.
How do we get a hold of you, David?
Certainly, if you want these slides, you can email me, David at Keeping Current Matters. Happy to get those over to you. If you want to check out a free 14-day trial, go to trykcm.com. So trykcm.com. Try it for free for 2 weeks. See if it's right for you. Look at all that. But no doubt, my encouragement to you is to get this information so that you can put out expert content into the market.
How much is Keeping Current Matters per month?
Depending on which level, $29 a month where we start out. If you want all the social posts and everything like that, videos, it's $49 a month.
So $1.50 a day?
Yeah.
Right? Y'all spend more than that going out to lunch. You do. Y'all spending that on Starbucks coffee. Invest, take it from Starbucks and give it to yourself. Invest in yourself. $50 a month.
Yeah.
30 to $50, $1 or
certainly I would make the case that from today heading into the spring market, we're going to be busy. There are going to be questions in the world relative to inflation, mortgage rates, and what's going on, and we're going to have your back in that. So
yeah, that's what you need. Listen, you don't need to be the smartest guy in the room. You just have to know the smartest guy in the room. That's you guys, right? You don't have to do all the research. They've done it for you. They got a team of 10 million people that do the research for you, and they find all the great stuff, and they're able to bring it to you in a way that's easy to understand. Because I'm going to tell you something, economics is not easy to understand. It's open to interpretation a lot. You guys have taken all the hard work and provided the pretty graphs, and all you have to do is repeat after me, right? Repeat after David. That's all you have to do. Anyways, go to trykcm.com. Right, trykcm.com.
That's it. Yep. And Jake put it in the chat there. Jacqueline, I see your comments there. Thank you for that. Absolutely, being the educator in the market today is the answer.
Absolutely, y'all go check out Keeping Current Matters. We'll see you in 2 weeks. David, Thank you much.
Thank you. See you back in a couple weeks.
Peace out, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.